Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm Josh Strife Hayes, and this is a complete beginner's guide to Warhammer 40k 8th edition. We're now going to look at the actual rules of playing the game. We've had a look at the modelling and painting, we've worked out how datasheets work, and how to point cost our army up. Now we can begin battling. The game itself is divided down into several phases. We'll start with the first phase, the movement phase. All the videos from now on will be extremely practical. I'll be using examples from every situation you might find yourself in a game, and then we'll play a test game at the end using all the things we've learned so far. Let's start off with the movement phase. The first of the phases is the movement phase. This is where we can move our troops around the battlefield. During the movement phase, each unit or individual model may move once and only once. There are a few various situations you'll find yourself in. You may simply choose not to move a unit. That's fine. There are many reasons for leaving a unit exactly where it is. If you do choose to move a unit, you may move it up to its maximum movement value. I'm using Death Watch Space Marines, so if I open my codex and find the exact movement value for my units, I'll know how far they can move. This is a group of 5 veterans. It tells me here the movement value for a veteran is 6 inches. So if I am starting my turn, I have not moved the unit and they are not in close combat, which means within 1 inch of an enemy model, they may move 6 inches. I'll simply measure out 6 inches and then move every individual model down that much. You must move the unit cohesively and together. That means I can't move 4 of them 6 inches one way and the other guy 6 inches another way. You can't split the unit up, you must move them together. That is an extremely simple way of moving. I've now moved the unit from the place it was to the place it now is, 6 inches, and done. I cannot move that unit again. Over here I have a unit of Terminators. I can now move these guys. I just need to work out what their movement value is. It's 5 inches. Now the Space Marines could move 6. The Terminators can move 5. This is a bit of a problem. It means, given enough time, eventually the Space Marines are going to be able to escape. They will run away. They can move further. So I can, if I choose to, cause my Terminators to advance. Advancing simply means you state that this unit is going to advance, you roll a d6, a single 6-sided dice, and you add the number in inches to the movement roll. If you choose to advance, you cannot shoot or charge in the remaining turn. So I'm going to declare this unit of Terminators as advancing. I'll roll a d6, and I rolled a 4. I can now move their regular 5 inches plus an advance of 4 for a total of 9. I can now move 9 inches further. My Terminators have now covered more distance than they would be able to, but they cannot shoot or charge later in this turn. You would declare an advance if you need to cross distance quickly and you are not close to an enemy. Let's have a look at another situation you might find yourself in. Starting your movement phase when one of your units is within 1 inch of an enemy. Over here I have a Dreadnought in close combat with a Tyrannid Trigon Prime. Let's find the Dreadnought's movement value. It tells me here that the movement value of a Dreadnought, if I flip through, is 6 inches. However, because it's in close combat, it cannot move in whichever way it wants to. It must take a special action called fall back. Falling back simply means disengaging from melee combat. If you choose to fall back, you cannot shoot or charge in that turn. It's similar to advancing in that way. My movement value is 6 inches and I'm going to choose to fall back out of combat. I will move the Dreadnought 6 inches away from the Tyrannid Trigon Prime. The unit of Terminators and the single model Dreadnought both cannot shoot or charge this turn. One unit because it chose to advance, another unit because it fell back out of melee combat. Units cannot move through other units. we have 5 Space Marines and 5 Terminators. If it's my movement phase and neither of these groups have moved, the Space Marines have a 6-inch movement range. This should mean, in theory, I can end up here. However, because I cannot move through the Terminators, I need to move around them first. I can spend my movement phase hopping over here instead. Certain units or models may have special rules that allow them to move through other friendly units. Check your datasheet and codex to see if you're able to do this. What about terrain? As most of your battles will not be taking place on a boring flat board. Let's imagine these 2 foam blocks here represent a wall. You cannot move through it and you cannot climb over it. The Marines will have to spend their movement turn moving 6 inches around the wall, as they are unable to go over it. However, my squad of Vanguard veterans down here have the fly keyword. The fly keyword allows units to ignore terrain and move as if it wasn't there. Vanguard veterans have a 12-inch movement range, allowing them to jump effectively an entire foot across the board, ignoring any troops or terrain that may be in their way. Remember, you cannot end your movement phase within 1 inch of an enemy, because that counts as getting into close combat, and this isn't the time we do that. These Marines here have a 6-inch movement, which in theory means they could get right next to the Trigon Prime. However, because this is the movement phase, they're not allowed to end within a single inch. They can move right up to within an inch. That's absolutely fine. They can move around the model. They can circumnavigate the whole map, but they cannot end within 1 inch of this model. They must end just outside of the inch range. Here is a mock battle setup. We have a Tyranid Trigon Prime over in the corner as the main enemy. I have a Dreadnought on the field, a squad of 5 Vanguard veterans with fly, a squad of 5 Space Marines, and a squad of 5 Terminators. Let's move each of these individually. I don't really want to move the Dreadnought. I like the fact he has line of sight on the enemy and he has a powerful weapon I want to keep shooting. Ideally, I don't want to get into melee combat with this thing at all. It's very powerful, but I do want to be closer. The issues I have are, my squad of Marines back here cannot see the Trigon Prime. There is a wall in the way. They can't move straight over the wall as they don't have fly, so they'll have to move around it. They have a 6-inch movement range. Measuring 6 inches, I can probably move 4 inches to the edge of the wall and 1 inch around, but that's not very much. It doesn't get me as close as I want to be. I'm going to declare this unit advancing. That means I roll a d6 and add the result to their movement. So, the first part of my movement phase, this squad of 5 Tactical Marines will advance. The advance is 3, extending my movement range in total to 9. This allows me to move the closest Marine up to the edge, which takes me to 5 remaining, and then round to here. This means every Marine does have enough movement, due to the advance bonus, to move around to there. They can now see the Trigon Prime. My unit of Terminators back here only has a 4-inch movement range. Not very much. I don't want to advance with them this turn though, so I'll simply move them 4 inches forward. My squad of veterans has fly. They have a 12-inch movement range and can move over both terrain and other units. This means, in theory, I could move them anywhere this tape measure can reach. I don't want to end up in melee combat, but if I put my squad there, I am protecting my Dreadnought for a turn. But then the Dreadnought wouldn't be able to shoot. Moving is a tactical decision. You're moving your pieces around the board, working out the best advantage. For this time, I'm actually going to move the Vanguard Veteran Squad over here. I then need to ask myself, has any of my units ended their turn within 1 inch of an enemy? No, they haven't. I've still got the Terminators over here behind the wall. That's still going to be a problem, but everything else has moved into a slightly more tactical place. And that's the movement phase. If it sounds confusing, remember there are effectively 5 things you can do or 5 decisions you need to make. The first 3 involve: does your unit not start within 1 inch of an enemy? As in, are they not in melee combat? If they're not in melee combat, you can do one of 3 things. 1, stay still, not move your unit. 2, move your unit up to their maximum movement value. Or 3, declare them as advancing, roll a d6, and add the result of the roll in inches to the movement value. If you do this though, remember you won't be able to shoot or charge later in the turn. If your unit does start within 1 inch of an enemy, as in they are in melee combat, then you can do one of 2 things. You can either not move and remain in combat, or you can choose to fall back and move up to your maximum movement value away from the fight. If you choose to fall back, you cannot shoot or charge later in that turn. And that's phase 1 sorted. You've now moved all of your units around the battlefield. In the next video, we'll look at phase 2, the psychic phase. Thank you very much for joining me as usual. If you have any feedback or questions, leave them in a comment below and I'll try my best to answer them. If you'd like to chat to me live, come and join me on Twitch at twitch.tv/Josh Strife Hayes. We also have a link in the description for our ever-growing Discord channel. And once again, thank you for your time and have a great day.